Aloha and welcome to Resist with Ray podcast, where we amplify the voices of everyday people and empower our listeners to engage, show up, and become the policy shapers of tomorrow. I'm Tina Marie.
My name is Martina, and we want to dive into the top of mind news of the last week. Every day, every hour, so many things happen, but we pick a few topics and we just discuss and our impressions and how wild this ride is. Let's dive right into it. All right. So we want to start out with mocking Ivanka Trump because at the beginning of the week, these people are just out of their mind. So we don't know if everybody's seen this podcast where Ivanka Trump was talking about this island in front of Albania and how she discovered it and swam there and then went barefoot to the top of the mountain, and that they wanted to, you really have to watch it. I'm going to put it in the show notes, but it's such a drastic example how out of touch these folks are to how we live our lives, right? And then it was top off with Jared Kushner, the husband, also being on a podcast where he told they were on the Rothschilds yacht when they were in 2021 or 2022 just flying around the world, looking around, and what else can they do with their lives? So it was a lot of mockery, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I really liked the popcorn emoji. It's whenever I saw something, I made a comment. It's like popcorn, popcorn.
My favorite one is the GIF or the GIF, whatever you call it. It's of Michael Jackson and his Thriller video, and he's just eating the popcorn at a movie theater. That's my favorite one to see all the time.
I have this feeling, there's so many things, so many people are now engaged, and there's so many, I call them digital soldiers, right? You can do your part to be in the resistance. That's what we're trying to do, and resist with joy. But this brings a lot of joy. Oh, look at that. We have Marcus now. But as a digital soldier, there's so much pushback against what the elite, pretty much the people that with lots of money, and they figured out over the last 2-4 decades how to put laws in place, influence legislation, so they could live the lives that they live now, right? And that's the work we have to do, to just bring different people into the legislators and send them to Congress so laws can be changed and a society can be created that is just not so the 1%
Chaotic.
of the 1% and we are the rest. And then so much chaos ensues because then a malignant narcissist and a demented president is it's steering the ship, right? And it's definitely not steering it. It's just too wild times that we live through.
Yes.
Yeah. So lots of mockery, and we really
Wild,
enjoyed
cruel,
that.
and chaotic.
Yeah, wild, cruel. Yeah. Corruption is so blatant, and actually that now ties into another story that also happened this week. I just want to mention as a side note, the Knicks game on Monday where the president showed up and everybody was
That
just
was awesome.
doing it. That was really awesome. And then they won last night, the series, right? The Knicks
Because he wasn't
won it.
there.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's a really big deal for New York City, or for New York, I guess, Anyway.
Did you see Mom Donnie dancing in the streets and having an after Knicks party game? That was so amazing. It just warmed my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the guy that we want to model after, It's amazing what he can accomplish. He's the example. Put the right lawmakers or the right executives into place,
He
and life
pushes
can
a
be
button
different.
and makes things happen. He pushes a button and makes things happen.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And that ties into what happened on Friday night. Tens of thousands of people were online to watch the Kennedy Center. Trump put his name on the Kennedy Center. It was illegal. And then there was a court order that by midnight on the Friday night on East Coast time, the name should have come off. And it was this almost like a show, right? That you were watching live how they were building a scaffolding. It was hilarious. I was watching, okay, that's how you do the scaffolding, and this is the next level. And to top it all off, then they put top on it. And what kind of show?
It was a metaphor for how much everything is covered up.
Yeah, everything's covered up. The cronies, the corruption, the cover up, right? There's all these 3 C's was accumulating on Friday when Trump's name was supposed to come off. And as far as I know, the name is off, but we don't know because the top is still up, it's a crazy world. And to me, this is more or less personal. I've been there. I've been at the Kennedy Center. I was trying to learn history and trying to learn actually what happens. I actually went to Washington, D.C. twice in the summer of 22 and 23. For example, I wanted to walk how far it is, like all these folks that on January 6, 2021, ran from the White House, where the ellipse is, where this big event was. And then I walked over to the Capitol, how long it is. I want to actually walk it myself and see what's going on there or how this all took place. And then I also went to the Kennedy Center and I watched the show, and it was Mamma Mia, this really cool show with lots of singing. So I was inside the Kennedy Center and took some pictures, and it was, so when I see anything about the Kennedy Center, it's closer to me than just some building somewhere in a big city. I thoroughly enjoyed that live stream as well. I was one of the many tens of thousands being online and watching this thing happening.
And here you are, someone who came here from another country, and you got to visit the Capitol before I ever have.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've never
Oh,
been.
all right. Well, maybe we should make plans to go there together. And I would love to go to Washington, D.C. again, mostly because we are now in this independent media space. Maybe it's going to not be Washington, D.C., but I want to go with you to the mainland to one of those conferences where those independent media folks gather to exchange and get a little bit more boost and networking. And maybe we can do that one day
That would be
soon.
great. Hey, if
Because,
you wanna sponsor us, that'd be awesome too.
well, let's
Any of
discuss
our
that
viewers wanna help
offline.
sponsor us?
Yeah. Yeah. But we have big plans. We don't have a big audience now, but we have an audience and we know what we're doing. And we just need to get more exposure. And I think networking like this conference would really help. And I think Hawaii is fertile grounds to have independent media and have our voices heard, and not just only what corporate media or anybody else talks about. It's my voice. It's your voice.
It's all of our voices.
That's right. For a better world. All right. So that was the take on Ivanka and the Kennedy Center. What is on your mind?
Well, we have the World Cup happening right now, or was it the World Cup? FIFA games? What is it called?
No, it's a soccer World Cup.
Yeah,
It's
World
one of the
Cup.
biggest events. Me being from Europe, soccer is a really big deal in Europe.
I don't
And
pay
in many,
attention to sports. I know there's a big sports ball thing happening. Okay?
the round ball. It's
Whatever
called,
y'all call it. But there
well,
is a World Cup happening,
yeah.
and the Iranians men's national soccer team is having to set up their base camp in Tijuana
Uh-huh.
instead of where they were originally going to locate, which is in Arizona, because of all the nonsense regarding the border security and whatnot. They even withheld somebody, a referee that was supposed to be at the game. Imagine going your entire life. You're training for this. You're doing all the things right to be part of this big national worldwide, sporting event. And you're denied entry into the country that is hosting it because of some stupid racist BS.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So just to
Just can't
clarify, so
fathom.
the World Cup, Soccer World Cup is taking place in Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And that has been decided probably 8 years ago. So the countries have time to plan all these things, just like the Olympics. But because this regime makes it difficult for especially Somalians to enter the country, this particular referee was said, no, you can't come in here. And he's one of the most talented and best referees from the African continent. And it's a big story in that he didn't receive entry. Because when we look at other countries, like the World Cup used to be one time in Qatar, I think the last one, and then the one in Russia. And these are countries that have really strict or that don't let anybody in and out, right? But for a World Cup, they had no problems letting the players in, the referees in, anybody who's supporting the teams. But the United States, of course, we're sticking, we're making it complicated for folks. And it just shines more of the light on this big event that everybody in the world knows about it, more or less, I guess, but what complication there are.
And it contradicts what JD Vance was saying a while ago, where he said, come in, watch the games, have fun, and then leave. But now they're not even letting half the people come in. And it's like, why?
Yeah. Yeah. What I heard this morning when I talked to my family in Europe, this Somalian referee. So the World Cup, it's an association or it's worldwide. But there's also an association just for Europe. It's called UEFA, UEFA. And there will be a a final game or something like this. And the Somalian referee is being invited to referee that one. So that is what normal people would decide, and we just don't live through normal times. And that's a really important message for everybody that is maybe never been exposed to anything like this, fascism. These are not normal times. We don't want to live under a fascist regime. We don't want cronies. We don't call corruption. We just want normal times where you can educate yourself, live your normal life, and have good lawmakers in place that make your life better and not worse. So, yeah, that's what we're fighting for. All right, the World Cup.
That was my fight. Funny side note, whenever I kind of tell back in the olden days, this goes back to my grandma, by the way. Whenever my grandma used to get upset, she used to hold a knife in her hand and she would just go like this to you. She would never would ever actually hit you. So I do this as a joke to my husband sometimes when he gets on my nerves. And then he makes fun of me and he's like, I'm going to punch you. I'm going to punch you. Punch, punch, punch. I just thought it was funny.
Good to know this about you. I can interpret the moment correctly. Grandma's coming through you. That's
Yeah.
what's happening. Yeah. Actually, it ties into something. We maybe pick that up again about grandma and how our brains are formed in our early years. But before we get to that part, we wanted to talk about a commission meeting this week. It's the Hawaii Election Commission meeting that meets twice a month, I guess. And we both spent 6 hours of our life on Wednesday watching it. But we had a particular reason to do it. Do you want to just tell your side of the story? And I'm going to...
Yeah, one of our co-leaders for our Kona Indivisible group, he is a judge, Judge David Weissman. He applied to be the chair of the entire commission. And so there was 8 applicants, and we got to sit there and watch every applicant tell their little speech, and then they got asked questions. And then we had a bunch of testimony after from people like us that were in there to support the people that we wanted to become chair. And it was incredibly disheartening to hear how many of the applicants were 2020 election deniers and talking about how there was election fraud in Hawaii and whatnot. And it's just, I spoke up when I had my chance to testify. I was like, how can I see you as a good leader for anything if you're going to sit there and watch everything that's happening, all the cruelty, and still think that Trump is a good leader or what have you? It's like, I question your sanity at this point, and I question your ability to have a leadership role. So Judge David Weissman is a very moral, high morals, high ethics. He's very fair, and I've never known him to be unreasonable. Even if there were times where I disagreed with him, I still understood where he was coming from. And I have seen him change his mind when he's been given new information. And that's exactly what we anticipate and we expect of people that are leading anything. There's people who are willing to listen, willing to change their mind, and are willing to be fair. And a lot of these applicants were just questionable in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really eye-opening. I read articles or I heard from other people that the election commission is a problem. Like Judge David Weissman said, I think there are about 170 to 180 commissions in the Hawaii government and different commissions. And we should mention how a commission gets formed. I think the governor can say, let's form a commission, or the legislator says, let's form a commission. And then people are appointed, people are just like us, are being appointed to a commission. And then in this case, for the election commission, it's 4 people coming from the Democrats and 4 people coming from the Republican side. So the legislators, like I think the Senate, the Speaker of the House appoints people, or the Senate president. So they're being appointed. So 4 people left and 4 people more on the right. And then these 8 people have applicants to vote then for an applicant to be their chair. That's the 9th person in this whole commission. And sitting through this was, I mean, at some point it was, again, the popcorn moments, but sometimes also like pull your hair out what kind of brainwashed people are sitting there. And there was one particular thing that really stuck out. There's a guy called Cushnie, and he's on the commission, I guess, for 4 years. The good news is he's terming out with 3 other people on the end of this month. And I hope other people will be appointed to the commission. But so 2 things were pointed out. This commission affects everybody. It's about elections. It's not just a certain specific thing that they talk about. It maybe doesn't affect me or someone else, but elections affect everybody. And to cast so much doubt on it is a really, really bad thing. And then the second thing, if an applicant had a deadline to put the application in, and this Cushnie, he wanted to run for chair, but he said, no, I'm not going to put my application in. I mean, and then he could see the other applicants' application and their answers to certain questions. So he had an advantage, and he could ask questions to really work against them or setting them up. And that's called the appearance of impropriety. Maybe he did it still in good faith, but Judge Weissman explained to us. That's called the appearance of impropriety. And it's all against the ethics that you're supposed to uphold. And it was a really educational piece. That part was really educational. And the guy didn't recuse himself. He said, no, I'm going to drop out. I'm not going to ask questions. He could have done that too. He could have said, I'm not going to vote. No, he just said, I'm Ralph Cushnie and I can do these things and you cannot tell me not to do it. And this particular commission, I mean, there could be a lawsuit against if there would have been a
Yeah.
chair elected,
Even the chair was saying that this is gonna probably open us up to some kind of a lawsuit if you continue, and he was very adamant about it and encouraging him to step down and refrain, but he refused.
That's right.
And it's
Yeah.
all public, you can go watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on YouTube. We can put a link. It's going to be a long 6-hour video, but you can maybe find a summary of it. The Civil Beat had a story about it this morning in the news, wrote an article pretty much chiming into it, but they didn't cover the appearance of impropriety. And as far as I know, Judge Wiseman will follow up on that with Civil Beat because this cannot be swept under the carpet. If you're on a commission, you make decisions for the rest of the citizens of this state. You have to have the highest ethics and you have to follow those. It's mind-boggling with me.
And just
And
so
yeah,
everybody knows too, like, this is a volunteer position, nobody gets paid to do it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah. And there are really some cuckoo people on that commission. Well, we can only hope. Well, what we do know is there was at the end, you could watch the actual, they were trying to get one of those applicants and they voted on it. First, all 8. I think one actually dropped out. So it was 7 applicants eventually. And then everybody voted on it. And some people fell out. They said the last 3, least amount of votes, therefore they just get kicked out. And then they narrowed down. But to get the chair elected, it has to be a 2/3 majority. And so they had to have,
of the sitting election officials.
yeah, so 6 votes. And the most someone received was 4 votes. So at the end of that meeting, they said, well, what do we do now? Should we have a temporary chair? And then I think it's the Deputy Attorney General was listening to all of it. And he's supposed to put together an opinion, what the law says. And they will meet again on the 24th of June. And then 6 days later, the chair's out, he terms out, and 4 other people are terming out. So all of this can really push into a better future because other people will be appointed. So we'll see what's happening there. What I also learned is the election commission is just, if there would be kind of questions about the election, they would investigate that. They don't make decisions, they just investigate. But there's also a chief election officer, and this particular gentleman is in place for 28 years, and I'm not sure how he gets to his place. I think he's also elected. So anyway, there is a lot of things that come together
The
in the
moving pieces.
democracy. Yes, it's messy, but yeah, these guys are quite some kooky people out there. So
That is a very polite way to say it.
yeah,
I have other words, but
tell me.
might have to bleep it out.
You can do that. So, but anyway, it's really if you have had doubts in 2020 and you didn't know, but it's 6 years later, right? And there were 60 court cases, and all the court cases, people actually brought
And
lawsuits
that's
to try
that's
to.
what baffles my mind. It's like all these court cases that investigated the 2020 election, and not a single one of them found anything
Mhm. Yeah,
nefarious, but
yeah,
yet people are still clinging to the fact that Democrats stole the election. I really don't understand it. It makes no sense to me.
yeah. It doesn't have to make sense to them. They just want to have power, and they have the power now, the Republicans, and it's not going well. That's my opinion. So
It's definitely
anyway,
not going well, but they sure think it is, but whatever. Anywho,
all right, and we want to talk about something else.
I wanted to talk about babies.
That's right.
It's very obvious that ICE is detaining a lot of people that shouldn't be detained, and this includes children. There are a lot of children that are being detained by themselves, essentially, without much adult supervision. And in the detention centers, a lot of them have written notes saying, we haven't had fresh fruit in the entire time that we've been here. The water is contaminated and making us sick. And the doctors that do see us are telling us to drink more water, but it's what's making us sick. But you have to understand these kids are missing school. They're missing family time. They're missing developmental years with their friends. And babies that are in these detention centers, when they should be given love and, teaching them, how to get their needs met and learning how to crawl and learning how to sit up and learning how to walk and learning how to talk. learning how to use the bathroom, like all of these fundamental things that we teach babies when they're in their infant years. It's not happening when they're in these detention centers. And ICE has detained 500 babies and toddlers. And because of this, their brains are never going to be the same. You know, it's just, it breaks my heart to know that this is what we're doing to children. It's bad enough we're doing this to adults, but we're doing this to children. These children should not be in a detention center. At most, they should be there maybe a few days to process their paperwork, but then they should be under the care of actual families. And we can have an entire discussion about how like the foster care system is trash as well. But what's going on there is so much worse. And I can't even begin to comprehend, like, this is the best we can do.
Well, that ties into it. The best we can do. The thing is, we can do better. You sent me that information for preparation today, and we're going to put it in the show notes too. But the information that you shared with me is one of the things is if you get detained, you're supposed the maximum time in detention is 20 days. That's it, right? But they just don't want to do better. They don't want to follow the law. And so the kids in particular, they're there for several months now. And that's where this development is just so held back that what would be the human best experience for the child. That's why it's so important to have safety and food and love in the formative years of anybody's life, you know, and that ties into what you said earlier. You still think about your grandma doing certain things. This is what we remember for the rest of our lives. And that's what is so detrimental to these 500 children. That's the formative years being under these circumstances. There was also a statistic on there that it is 500 under the Trump regime. It was 0 at some point at the end of Biden's term. It was at 0. So he worked really, really hard to get this number to 0 because that administration understood you cannot have children in detention for so long or even in detention, right? So it goes back to we have to put the right lawmakers, we have to put the right executives in place to form the society that we want. So yeah, we have to do our work to expose it, point it out.
Just to point to the gravity of the situation that's here, there are kids that stopped speaking altogether because they're so traumatized. They started hitting themselves in the face. These kids have depression. At 2 years old, they're being diagnosed with depression. They lose consciousness. A toddler has lost consciousness, and all they did was give her Tylenol. And these are kids that are in unsanitary conditions, filthy diapers, little medical care, being given filthy water. Like, how is this okay with anybody?
Yeah, I'm pretty speechless. You know, now that we talk about it, you know, there's so many news coming towards us, but that should really stop us in the tracks, that we have to do better, especially as a country that is so wealthy and has so much, and we built so much over 250 years. Now we are in a place where 500 babies are being detained, and they will never, that's what's the headline, right? Their brains will never be the same.
Yep.
Because from the start, they didn't get the right chances to live a normal, healthy life. Yeah.
It is heavy. And, you know, a lot of people will say, well, their parents shouldn't be here illegally. You know what? I don't care. You can't sit there and say yourself that you're going to do anything for your children, that you would move heaven and earth to do anything for your children, and then demonize other parents who do the same. They're just coming here for a better life. And as we know, a lot of the people in detention centers are not even undocumented people. They're people who've had papers. They're people who have gone through the system, and they're just being kicked out. So I don't want to hear your excuses. There is no excuse that we should be doing this to children. Zero.
Yeah. Sometimes we should push back on folks that if you have a situation that says, you know, it's too easy to get into this country. No, it's not that easy, actually.
You have experience.
I'm an immigrant, you know. What do you think? How difficult this? Anybody has to get a visa. If you come as a tourist, you have to have a visa, right? If you are married, I'm married to an American, so I had to go through the process of all the paperwork. We came from outside the country, and we had to go to the embassy, and we had to do all kinds. We had interviews. I had to have a sponsor. I needed someone in the country that had enough income to sponsor me. So I'm immigrating as a wife. But if someone is being tortured in their home country and they're trying to find a better life, it's called asylum. You know, you can go to other countries. That's international law. And all of this is just so undermined. It's so cruel and has such dire consequences that if someone makes a comment like this, you are really, really an uneducated human being. That's what it is. And I highly recommend to learn more before you open your mouth.
And you went through this immigration process as someone coming here. And I went through that process as a spouse of someone coming here in my last marriage. So there's a lot of steps to go through, a lot of paperwork. There's a lot that can be, misunderstood. And sometimes paperwork gets lost. In the case that happened with us a couple times and we had to refile, but it's not an easy process. Like even us being married, he still had to wait to come into this country to be with me. So it's not an easy process. It's not easy to just pop in and come here.
Yeah.
It's much what everybody thinks.
That's right. Yeah. All right. So that was a heavy piece. Yeah. So how do we end the
Have an
show?
action item.
Oh yeah. We still want to resist with joy. And so what's the action item?
The action item is to sign up to be an election watcher. For those in Hawaii, you can go to the elections.hawaii.gov, and there are a bunch of different options for you to become a volunteer poll watcher. So you can join the audit team, which is what I signed up for. And this basically helps you to confirm the accuracy and integrity of the election results. There's also an option to do ballot opening. And this removes the ballots from the current envelopes and whatnot, prepares them for counting. There's duplication, there's VBC processing, there's official observers. So there's a few different opportunities to actually volunteer to watch and oversee the elections. And they'll give you the times and dates and what have you. So we're going to have you go sign up and fill out to be one of those positions.
Yeah. Do your part. It's being part of a society you want to create. Resist with joy and be that engaged, educated citizen. Right. Okay. I think that rounds it up. Thank you for listening today. We'll put lots of links into the show notes. If you want to hear more from us, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button everywhere you can. Tina Marie tells you where to do it. Every corner of the screen. And then we'll see you again next week with Resist with Joy podcast. We are gearing up to have interviews now also published, and we want to bring some neighbors to you that are doing the work or tell really important stories, and we will release them. Well, we don't have a release date, but it's coming very soon.
Very
Thanks
soon.
for listening today. Aloha.
Aloha.